Hey everyone, I'm Sinai, your 4-star guy, and today I just wanted to show you guys my character box, so you guys can see what characters I'm comfortable with, what characters I invest a little more in, as well as what I think a good build could look like on them if you guys are interested. Currently, I'm at a point in the game where I think that my characters are good enough as they are, and I'm not focusing on investing in any particular one right now. I'm kinda saving up materials so I can just level up someone on a whim. Since a couple of videos ago, I have 9-star Spile Abyss floor 12. I just had to put a little more brain and willpower than I did before, but my characters can totally do it. As you guys can see, I have every 4-star in the game right now, all at least level 70 at the ascension that you can get to level 80 with, since you get a sweet summon from it. I don't make it a point to get max constellations on them, so some of my characters may have a lot of constellations, and while others may have none. 4-stars are my priority, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't like to build 5-stars I like if I had the extra resources to, which is why you guys may sometimes see me want to get certain 5-stars anyway. As a side note, currently I am running extremely low on Primo Gems. I'm trying to get Rosaria to C1 since I use her for floor 12 of the Spiral Abyss, and I think her C1 is awesome. I want to make that chore just a little easier for myself. But of course, since I am so low on Primo Gems, if another 4-star character is announced to come out soon, I will not be happy, since I don't really like spending money. It probably wasn't a good idea to try to get that C1, especially if floor 12 just changes one day anyway. But I am already one summon away from my next pity, so I'll see what I get. So let's start off with a Traveler. I usually use her in her Geo form because I think she pairs really well with other Geo characters. She can switch in to use her skill and ultimate to generate energy and also give us a crit rate boost and of course make Geo resonance happen. Because I like to use her to just switch in with other Geo characters, I think the Harbinger of Dawn is really great to boost her ultimate and skills damage, and because we are pretty safe only letting her be out on the field for a little while with other Geo characters, especially giving a shield, probably, we'll probably stay above 90%. I also found out that I like using the Festering Desire, because I like how much damage her skill does. Both of the effects kind of boost the skills damage, and it also gives us energy recharge to make sure that her ult stays up. It also has a higher base attack too. For her artifacts, I use the Archaic Petra set to give us a little more geo damage and give us some damage support for whatever element we're using. Because the Harbinger of Dawn and Festering Desire makes our skills crit rate higher, I use crit damage and attack goblet. I don't use Geo just because I don't want to go through the trouble of finding another Geo set, and this is a pretty good piece, I think, in my opinion, whatever. An attack percent timepiece. This is my feather, and this is my flower. I have her at Constellation 6, obviously, since everyone gets that. And then these are my talent levels. This is what her final stats look like. I also have her at level 80, ascended to 90, because at first she was one of my favorite characters, so I wanted to make her my highest level character. But then I started to realize she's not a really important investment, so I ascended her to 90 just because we get her ascension materials for it anyway. Alright, so next let's talk about Razor. I use him as a physical damage dealer, obviously because his normal attacks are really good. He can do his own superconduct, his ultimate just makes his normal attacks do more damage per second, and he did so good that I felt good ascending him to 90 and leveling him to 89. For his weapon, I use the Serpent Spine, which is the Battle Pass weapon. It has good crit rate, and it also gives us a damage bonus for every 4 seconds we're on the field, as long as we don't get hit. So even when we switch out, we'll still have the damage buffs when we switch back in. I like this buff, especially since I use him a lot with Diona to do Superconduct, so I won't take damage because she can shield me up. For his artifact set, I use the Gladiator's Finale to give us an attack boost and also a normal attack damage bonus. I use crit damage because we have a crit rate for our sword. I have a physical damage goblet, a timepiece, an attack percent timepiece. This is my feather, and this is my flower. My feather has pretty good crit rate, crit damage. I was pretty happy about that. I have Constellation 1 on him so we can boost our damage. And then this is how my talents are looking. I have his normal attack at talent level 10. This is what his final stats look like. Sometimes I like to use Noelle as a geo damage dealer. Since her ultimate boosts our attacks based on our defense, the sword's reach during her ultimate is also a lot bigger, so it makes it easier to deal with large groups of enemies, and she can also provide us a shield and also heal while her shield is active. For her weapon, I have the White Blind to boost our defense, and the effect gives us more attack and defense when we use our normal attacks. For her artifact set, I use the Retracing Bolide to make our shield even stronger and make our normal attack stronger while we are shielded. For her circlet, I have a crit rate one, I have a geo damage goblet, a defense percent timepiece, this is my feather, and this is my flower. I have Constellation 3 on her, so I get guaranteed healing when I use her ultimate and shield at the same time. This is what my talent levels look like on her. And this is what my final stats look like. I also use Ningguang as a geo damage dealer. Since her normal attacks are strong, we can use her charge attack a lot. Her skill deals a decent amount of damage, but it also gives us a geo damage boost when we pass through the screen, and her ultimate has a low energy cost. For her weapon, I use the Solar Pearl. It's a Battle Pass one. It gives us nice crit rate, and we get a normal attack or Elemental Scroll and burst damage buff, depending on which one we use first. For her artifacts, I pretty much use Lumine's Archaic Petra set, so we get a 15% damage bonus. So yeah, nothing new here. I also use Noelle's Geo Damage Goblet instead, and nothing's new, except sometimes I use Xiangling's Gladiator Flower, so I can get a 2-piece Gladiator Finale and 2-piece Archaic Petra set for the most damage. I have Constellation 4 on her. This gives me an extra charge of her skill, essentially. This is what my talent levels look like. And this is what her final stats look like. Even though it's a little out of order, I think that the next character I should talk about is Xiangling. She is a damage dealer that I use the second most often. I use her as a physical damage dealer with the Crescent Pike because it has a high base attack, a little bit of physical damage bonus, and it deals an extra hit of damage with every normal attack hit we do. This is very useful, especially with Xiangling, because her normal attack combo has a lot of hits, so we get a lot of those extra hits as well. For her artifacts, I have a 2-piece Gladiator's Finale and a 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry to boost our physical damage that boosts our normal attacks, as well as charge attacks and the extra hits of damage from the Crescent Pike. I have a crit rate circlet, a physical damage goblet, an attack percent timepiece, this is my feather, and this is my flower. I have her at Constellation 4 right now. Her 4th Constellation increases her ultimate's duration by 40%, so this makes it very nice to keep her ultimate up. These are what my talent levels look like. And this is what her final stats are. I do have another way I like using her instead of a physical damage dealer, but I don't want to spoil it just yet because she is the next character I plan on talking about as a character guide. Rosaria is a character I very much enjoy using as a permafreeze character, where you use Chongyun to make your normal attacks cryo and Xingqiu to make sure that the enemies are frozen with hydro. When enemies are frozen, Cryo Resonance and the Blizzard Share artifact set bonus gives us a lot of crit rate, so we can just focus on our crowd damage and crit damage to make our to boost our overall damage by a lot. For her weapon, I use the Deathmatch to make sure that our crit rate is 100%, and with the Crescent Pike, we don't need the physical damage bonus that it gives, and the extra hits are physical damage instead of crowd damage, and in this case, we will want more crowd damage. We also get an attack buff depending on how many enemies are nearby. For her artifact set, it is obviously the Blizzard Share, giving us a lot of crit damage on frozen enemies and gives us an extra crowd damage bonus. I have a crit damage circlet, a crowd damage goblet, an attack percent timepiece, this is my feather, and this is my flower. I have her at Constellation 0 right now, but I really want her to get to Constellation 1 since her when we deal a critical hit, our attack speed increases and our normal attack damage increases by 10%, so we'll have a lot more damage from our normal attacks. This is what my talent levels look like right now. And this is what her final stats are. Sometimes I do like using her as a physical damage dealer with Xiangling's Crescent Pike, as well as her artifact pieces that give us more physical damage bonus with the Bloodstained Chivalry and the physical damage goblet. As of now, I pretty much only use Chongyun as a support character, making sure that our main damage dealer deals cryo damage with their normal attacks, as well as to switch in to use his ultimate to do a little bit of damage. I don't think that he needs a lot of energy recharge since his energy cost for his ultimate is very low, so instead I just wanted him to do more damage by giving him the Prototype Archaic with a lot of base attack, an attack percent substat, and if we want to, we can swing a little to get that 300% additional damage hit. I used the Noblesse Oblige set on him to make his burst stronger, but more importantly, when we use his burst, our party's attack gets increased by 20%. I give him a crit rate circlet, an attack percent timepiece, goblet, an energy recharge timepiece. This is my feather, and this is my flower. I have him all the way at Constellation 6. And this is what my talent levels look like. This is what his final stats are. Sometimes I use his artifact set on Kaeya or Rosaria if I want to use them as a support over Chongyun. Kaeya is a character I pretty much use exactly like Rosaria with, being a permafreeze damage dealer, a physical damage dealer, and sometimes I use Chongyun's artifact set too, when I want to use him as a cryo support. For his weapon, I use the Black Sword because his normal attacks are strong already, and it gives him an extra crit rate. For his artifact sets, I pretty much use Rosaria's permafreeze, sometimes I use Xiangling's physical damage, and sometimes I use Chongyun's. So right now he's not holding anything, but I can use a lot of different artifact sets with him. I have him at Constellation 0, although Constellation 1 does seem pretty cool. And this is what my talent levels look like on him. Right now, since I don't have any artifacts on him, his stats are obviously not going to be too great. Lisa is a character I sometimes like to use to do reactions like Electrocharge and Overloaded, since she can do a lot of electro damage. Sometimes I also use her as an electro support for physical cryo damage dealers, since sometimes if I want to keep cryo resonance useful, I have to make sure that opponents are still affected by cryo, and Lisa with her normal attacks can just hit one opponent to not mess up cryo applications too much, unlike Fischl or Beidou where their electro applications kind of wipe a lot of the cryo procs off. Anyway, for her weapon, I like to use the Mapamare. It has a lot of elemental mastery and a high base attack. We also get more elemental damage when we trigger elemental reactions, which is perfect for Lisa. I like to use the Thundering Fury set to give us electro damage bonus and also make our electro reactions stronger. Right now, I'm kind of experimenting. I have a crit rate circlet, an electro damage goblet, an elemental mastery timepiece. This is my feather, and this is my flower. I kind of wish I had more energy recharge, but I also like having a lot of damage where it counts. I have her at Constellation 1, so I generate more energy when I hit enemies. And this is what my talent levels look like. For her weapon, sometimes I like to use the Thrilling Tales in situations like I said before, where she's an electro support. So when I do Superconduct, I can pass on the Thrilling Tales buff to the physical damage dealer. This is what her final stats look like. Amber is a character I love messing around with sometimes. Her charge shots on weak points with Melt or Vaporize is very satisfying to use since I can just use it a lot and it does a decent amount of damage. The only thing is that I get interrupted if I fight too many enemies and attacks are coming from too many different places. For her weapon, I use the Sharpshooter's Oath. It gives us good crit damage and increases our damage on weak spots. I found that this 3-star bow is pretty good for our Amber. For her artifacts, I use the Wander's Troop set to give us Elemental Mastery to make our Melt and Vaporize charge shots on weak points stronger, and also the 4-piece set makes our charge attacks even stronger. I have a crit damage bonus, since, by the way, charge shots on weak points, they always do crit damage, so I don't have to worry about crit rate, but increasing our crit damage is going to boost our damage directly. A Pyro Damage Goblet, an attack percent timepiece, this is my feather, and this is my flower. Honestly, these artifacts are pretty subpar, I think especially this attack percent timepiece, but the Wanderer's Troop set is pretty hard to farm since bosses don't give that many artifacts. I have her at Constellation 3 surprisingly. I didn't realize how hard that the starter characters were so hard to get constellations of since they're only on the permanent banner. Yeah, so I guess I got pretty lucky, but I would really look forward to having Constellation 4 since I think that her skill can be useful to generate energy if I have 2 whole charges of it. This is what my talent levels look like on her, mostly focusing on just her normal attack to make her charge stronger. And this is what her final stats look like. Fischl is a character I mostly just use as an electro support, making sure that Oz is on the field doing electro damage using her skill and ultimate. I also like using her as a main damage dealer sometimes, since I do like how strong her normal attacks are. Because I wanted the best of both worlds, I figured that the rest would be the best option, since its subset gives us attack percent, which is nice for both Oz and her as a damage dealer. The effect is also obviously very good for her as a damage dealer since it increases our normal attack damage by a large amount. For her artifacts, I use a 2-piece Berserker with 2-piece Thundering Fury set, giving us more crit rate and electro damage. I have a crit damage Circlet, an attack percent Goblet, an attack percent Timepiece, this is my Feather, and this is my Flower. I'm kind of surprised on how well the stats came out despite using 2 4-star pieces. I decided that the Flower was the best thing to make a 4-star because the flat HP main stat is very much not useful. And it was a hard choice between the others because all of the rest of the stats increase our damage by a lot, but I settled that this crit damage circlet was the best. I don't know if it was actually the best choice, but that's just what I decided. I have her all the way at Constellation 6, and this is what my talent levels look like on her. This is what her final stats are. Xingqiu is a character I pretty much exclusively use as a Hydro support, since his ultimate procs Hydro consistently over time and deals a lot of Hydro damage while the main damage dealer uses their normal attacks. For his weapon, I use the Favonius Sword since it has a very nice energy recharge substat, and its effect also gives us some extra energy particles when we land crit hits. Since his skill has 2 hits of damage, we essentially have 2 chances to get the extra energy particles. A lot of people do like using the Sacrificial Sword since it has the same energy recharge subset and it gives you 2 chances to use your skill, which does a lot of damage, but I don't like how it's only a chance, and it becomes more consistent as you refine it, but I don't like how whaley it feels to refine this weapon. For his artifacts, I use a 2-piece Heart of Depth and 2-piece Noblesse Oblige, giving us more Hydro damage bonus and making our ultimate stronger, so our ultimate is just going to be even stronger with both combined. I have a crit rate Circlet, a Hydro damage Goblet, an energy recharge Timepiece, I have a Feather, and I have a Flower. I kind of enjoyed getting HP percent subsets because when his swords that orbit around you disappear, they give you a little bit of HP based on Xingqiu's max HP, so I didn't really mind having some HP since the passive healing is kind of nice. I have Constellation 3 on him, which gives us an extra sword to heal us a little more and reduce the damage 1 more time. And we also have our ultimate leveled up by 3. This is what my talent levels look like on him. And this is what my final stats are. I realized that my energy recharge stat is a little high and it could have been higher in crit rate, attack, or crit damage, but I'm pretty happy because I get to use my ultimate very consistently. Bennett is a great character to complete Pyro Resonances, generate Pyro Energy with his skill, and his ultimate boosts our attack based off of Bennett's base attack, meaning his character attack plus his weapon attack, and he also heals a lot using his ultimate. For his weapon, I chose the Festering Desire because it has a pretty decent base attack and it also has an energy recharge substat. I didn't really feel like any other substat was really worth it, so yeah, this is pretty much the best I'm using. For his artifact set, I use a 4-piece Noblesse Oblige to make our elemental bursts do a little more damage, which is nice, but more importantly, it increases our party's attack even further when I use his ult by 20%. I have a healing bonus circlet, an HP percent goblet, an energy recharge timepiece. This is my feather, and this is my HP flower. This is my flower. Because it's only his base attack that's being transferred when we use our ultimate, I really didn't have to worry about what artifacts I put on him, because none of them would have really increased the amount of attack we transferred over to our next character. So I pretty much just focus on healing with his healing bonus and HP percent. And of course energy recharge to make sure that his ultimate gets up more. I have Constellation 2, and Constellation 1 gives me an extra 20% base attack transfer on our ultimate, and it also doesn't make us have to be above 75% to boost the person in it. This is what my talent levels look like. And this is what my final stats look like. Diona is a character I happen to use a lot with my physical damage dealers, Xiangling and Razor, to do Superconduct, because Xiangling burns a lot of the ground in the open world, and because Diona generates a shield while she procs Cryo, it's very nice to make sure that Xiangling doesn't get burn damaged too hard. And also because I use the Serpent Spine on Razor, having a shield makes sure that his buff stacks for his damage stay high. For her weapon, I use a Favonius Warbow because when we get a crit hit, we get a small amount of energy particles. I think this is pretty useful on Diona because I use her health skill a lot, so I have 5 hits when I use her skill, so I have 5 chances to get this proc off. Also, if that misses, because she's a bow user, I can just aim for a weak spot and guarantee a crit hit. The energy recharge is nice to just let her heal in clutch situations, and I also didn't really feel like any other bow was particularly helpful. For her artifacts, I used the 2-piece for Chasing Bolide and 2-piece Maiden Beloved. I mainly focus on her shield because I use it more often than I use her healing. So then the Retracing Bolide was nice, and then the Maiden Beloved was just kind of a little touch. I have HP percent for all of my main pieces for her artifacts because her shield strength scales off of her HP, so I wanted to make sure that was strong. And then this is my flower, and this is my flower. I meant feather for the flower. The other thing, and I just recently got Constellation 1, so I get some energy back when I use her ultimate, so I can use her ultimate more. This is what my talent levels are. And this is her final stats. I only use Sucrose as an elemental damage supporter because she can transfer some of her elemental mastery through her passives when she uses her skill, and she can also decrease the enemy's elemental resistances to reactions and elements by using the Vertus and Veneer set. I use the Sacrificial Fragments to give us more elemental mastery to pass over. The Sacrificial Fragments has a lot of elemental mastery, and because I have a Constellation on her that gives us 2 charges of her skill, I have 2 chances to get a 3rd charge of her skill, which can let me generate a lot of energy. For her artifacts, it's obviously the Vertus and Veneer set. I have an elemental mastery circlet, goblet, and timepiece, so I have even more elemental mastery to pass on to the rest of the team to make our reaction stronger. And this is my feather, and this is my flower. As I said before, I have Constellation 2, so I already talked about the first one, but then the second one is also nice because it gives us an extra hit on our ultimate. This is what my talent levels look like. I pretty much only use her for her effects, so I don't really care how much damage she does, which is why I left all of her talents at level 1. I realized that you can use her as a crowd control person too, but I kind of hesitate from using her ultimate because if I absorb the wrong element into her ultimate, it's gonna mess up the elemental reactions I do. This is what her final stats look like. At the moment, Beidou is a character I'm trying to figure out how I should use, But for now, I'm using her much like I use Fischl and Lisa, where I use her as an electro support character, dealing electro damage over time from off the field with her ultimate. And I can generate electro energy if I find the good opportunity to use her skill. For her weapon, I use a Favonius Greatsword to give her a lot of energy recharge, especially since her energy cost is pretty high. Sometimes if I feel brave enough with her energy recharge, I use a Prototyper Cake just to make her do that little bit more damage. For now, I'm just making her borrow Lisa's artifact set since they pretty much do the same job, and because they do the same job, they probably won't be on the same team, so yeah. I have her at Constellation 3 right now, and this is what my talent levels are on her. This is her stats for now. It could change later. Xinyan is a character I'm having a hard time figuring out because I want to use her as a physical damage support because when her shield is over the active character gets a physical damage bonus, but I have a hard time trying to fit her in Superconduct teams, especially since I don't want her Pyro procs to interrupt any Electro or Cryo procs to complete the Superconduct. Because I can't really think of fitting her into a team as a support, I also wanted to try her out as a damage dealer. Using her own shield to buff her own physical damage. I used a Snowtone Star Silver to give her a high base attack and physical damage bonus with a small extra hit, especially since Cryo procs aren't very likely on enemies around Xinyan, just because she can do so much pyro. I used the Exile set because I wanted to use her as a support and I didn't know what other set could have been better. But yeah, these artifact stats are pretty weird. I have crit rate on her circlet, physical damage on her goblet, defense on her timepiece. This is the feather and flower. As you can see, even though the other pieces deal with damage, I kept the defense one on here because her shield pops pretty quickly unless I have defense investment. And if your shield pops, I won't be getting that physical damage bonus anyway. So I'm having a hard time trying to balance her defense support capabilities and her damaging capabilities. I have her at Constellation 3 right now. And this is what my talent levels look like on her. This is what her final stats are, although I do admit Xinyan is probably the character I'm least proud of building since I don't know how to build her. Alright, now on to my only level 90 character, Barbara. Okay, so where do we even start? I mostly use her as a healer, and I think she's very good at that. Especially with the Thrilling Tubs of Dragon Slayers, we get an HP percent substat, which our max HP is what our healing is scaled off of, by the way. And when we switch into a character, their attack is increased by 48%, so she's also a good damage buffer. For her artifacts, I have a 4-piece Maiden Beloved, just to make our healing that much more crazy. I have a healing bonus circlet, an HP percent goblet, an HP percent timepiece. This is my feather, and this is my flower. I have her all the way at Constellation 6, and this is what my talent levels look like. You probably noticed that I have her normal attack at talent level 9. Yeah. And this is what her final stats look like. Yeah, sometimes I also like to mess around and see how much damage she can do with her charge attack. Her charge attack deals a pretty good amount of damage, and especially with Vaporize and a crit hit, it can get pretty crazy. I made a whole video about it on April Fools. So I used the Witsith on her because it gives us more crit damage, making our crit hits that much stronger. And we also get a random effect for 10 seconds once every 30 seconds. We either get an attack percent buff, an elemental damage buff, or an elemental mastery buff, all by pretty big amounts. And we have a 4-piece Heart of Depth set, which gives us a hydro damage bonus. And when we use our skill, we get a normal and charge attack damage bonus by 30% for 15 seconds. I have a crit damage circlet, a hydro damage goblet, and since the last video, I got this new piece, this attack percent piece. It rolled very well into crit damage and elemental mastery. So yeah, I'm very happy I found this attack percent timepiece. This is my feather again, and this is my flower. Of course her constellations are the same, and of course her talent levels are the same. this is what her final stats are. The crit rate might be low, and the attack might be low too, but I don't shy away from eating something like Jade Parcels or Adeptus Temptation when I want to make sure that she hits for big damage. So yeah, those are my characters. I didn't realize that this video was gonna take so long, but I guess I should have saw it coming based on how many characters I wanted to talk about. If you guys were wondering why I use 4-star characters and weapons a lot, it is because I felt like if I covered 5 stars, the expectation for me to get every 5-star that comes out would be very real. I totally get that because you guys look for channels like mine to learn more about these characters and how they play. But on a practical side for me, I think that Primo Gems are disgustingly expensive. And I feel like I had a hard enough time trying to keep up with the 4 stars and getting the resources to build them. I also thought it'd be fun to give you guys advice on characters you are way more likely to have. I kind of want people to feel like their accounts are strong and fun, even if they don't have all the new fancy 5 stars, since I don't want to encourage people to spend painful amounts of money on a free game just meant to be fun. Anyway, thank you guys for checking out my channel. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed what I had to say. I do Genshin Impact tips, character builds, team comps, and the occasional mess around video. And yeah, thank you guys for being so nice to me so far, and see you next time.